Hello, I'm Carol Woolton. Welcome to If Jewels Could Talk. And today I'm thrilled to be here with the legendary makeup artist, Val Garland. She's an artist in the true sense of the word, always incorporating unexpected materials and colour in her work. She originally trained as a hair colourist, which led her to makeup and creating runway looks for Alexander McQueen, high-profile celebrity shoots, and fashion spreads for Vogue. In 2004, she received the Pantene Pro V Makeup Artist of the Year award. In 2017, she was named as the first L'Oréal Paris Global Makeup Director, and she's a judge on BBC TV's series Glow Up, which is a competition to find Britain's next makeup star. And she's come here today to tell us about a jewellery collaboration with the costume jeweller Vicki Sarge. So we wanted to know how you got started originally in makeup.
Well, I was already doing some makeup in Australia because in Australia you have to do hair and makeup. It's just the way it is, and it's very funny because I was about to get divorced. I'd been married for 14 years, and I had this
So you must have got married young.
Oh gosh, yes, yeah. I think I was about 18. Yeah. He was a drummer in a band. Seemed like a good idea at the time.
Very handsome at the time.
Yeah, and we ran off to Australia. Anyway, so I decided that I was getting divorced. I was going to sell my salon in Sydney, but at that time I was also doing freelance work as a hair and makeup artist, working on magazine shoots, music promos. I used to work with Kylie in Excess, and I used to work for this magazine which was called Follow Me, and it was kind of like this really big. It was the fashion magazine of Australia, and the assistant to the stylist was a friend of mine, and she was called Naomi Watts, and I threw this big party to say, like, I've sold the salon, I've divorced the husband, I'm going to England, I'll never do hair again. And I was talking to her at the party about it, and she said, well, that's interesting because I don't want to be a stylist. I'm going to go to LA. I want to study to be an actress. Okay. Go forward about 15 years. And my agent in London says to me, this job has come in, and it's, will you do this press junket with this actress? And she's like, do you know who she is? And I'm like, well, what's her name? And she said, it's Naomi Watts. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's my old mucker. So off I go to the Covent Garden Hotel, me and Sam McKnight together. And Naomi opens the door and I say, g'day, mate. And she says, g'day, mate. And that was it, She'd fulfilled her dream. She'd gone to LA and, became this incredible artist, this incredible talent, and
And so had you.
Well, we'd both followed our dreams, and it was brilliant. It was brilliant.
I sort of think in your career you've spent years choosing the right colours to make women's faces pop.
Yes, and well, colour is everything, and if you're wearing the wrong colour on your face, then you're just not going to bloom. And I think it's the same. I associate that with jewellery as well. It's like, silver looks good on some people, but not on others. I'm very much a gold girl with a hint of silver because I like the warmth. I think my skin looks better with warmth.
So you'd think jewellery and makeup, say a bright red lipstick or a ruby earring, that has the same effect?
Absolutely, because I think of makeup as an accessory and adornment. So is jewellery. Makeup, a red lip can change, accentuate, elevate a look, and so can jewellery.
And I know you like jewellery because I did a shoot with you many years ago for British Vogue. Do you remember? Ducky was the model, and Nick Knight shot it. Sam did the hair.
Yes.
And I was just writing a book about crystals, and
Yes.
you bought out of your pocket a little packet rattling away with different crystals, rose
Yes.
quartz, amethyst,
Yes.
and you said you always carry them.
I've got them with me today.
Have you?
But they're probably different ones. But no, I've got them with me today. Yeah, yeah. Anything that makes you feel good, that sort of lifts your day, I think is worth it. And, those sort of like little crystals are like my guardian angels. It's like, okay, I've got protection, it's going, yeah, it's just one of those little things.
Do you choose different ones for different days?
Yes, yes. And, but I've got with me today, I've got my sort of like my favourites, which is, I think there's like an angel stone, there's a moonstone, and we're sort of like in a strawberry moon at the moment. Or today is the strawberry moon day. And I've also got the little Greek to ward off the evil eye.
A Greek stone.
It's well, no, it's like it's a Greek symbol, and is it the
Oh, I
eye of
see.
Horus? It's not the eye.
No, Eye of
No.
Horus is Egyptian.
Yes, it is Egyptian. I have that on another necklace. I've got this necklace. I should have brought it with me. I've got this necklace that is it's a charm necklace, and I've been making it for years. And, I've got all sorts of like symbols on there that I feel are part of me and make me feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I also remember you told me that day, you said it's very calming to have it. And you said that actually when you suddenly meet people for the first time, like some of these supermodels or actresses, and you said you have to really invade their personal space
Yes.
to go up and start fiddling with their face and putting
Yes.
things on it. And you said that you really have to get people's confidence.
Yes.
And approach them in a very sort of specific way.
Absolutely. And I mean, I do that. I start that very simply by when I'm talking to someone or I'm about to do their makeup, my hand is resting on their shoulder so that I feel like we are now beginning the connection. I sound like an absolute idiot, but I've already sort of like sprayed the brushes and the area with some sort of like lavender calming, and I've got my stones in my pocket. And you have to gain someone's trust for them to allow you to go right in. I think it's very important. And it was funny, I was doing a big shoot the last week with Solver Sunsbow, and we had lots of talent on the shoot. And one of the talents we had before was sort of like a pop star and was really kind of like into sort of like hip hop, and like the music was sort of like pumping in the makeup room. And I saw our next talent come in. I could see that she was already uneasy. And so I went into the makeup room and I'm like, change the music. We need classical. We need classical now. Everybody needs to leave the room. I want to be the only person in the room because, I will have like 2 assistants. Hair will have 2 assistants. There'll be a manicurist as well. Too many people. I need to gain this woman's trust. And then we can go on.
Which is a hard thing to do because on a big shoot like that, and doing the British Vogue shoots where you've got tons of people and assistants, and you have to be fast.
Yes.
That day we had to do 6 pages.
Yes.
You have to do it really fast. So to take time to do that is you've got to be very skilled at it.
Yeah, I think so. And you've got to know where you can take the time. Again, on the same shoot, we had another talent who was quite particular about her rituals. And like I can do makeup very, very quickly, but I knew that I was going to have to spend the time in the makeup room for this person to de-stress. They just got off a flight to de-stress. They weren't going to be wearing an awful lot of clothes, and it was a huge, big shoot. So I thought, I'm going to have to take time with the makeup. And I could see producers and the photographer coming in going like, so how are we going? And I'm like, we're not quite there yet, but we'll be ready for you. And we're going to get this shot really, really quickly, which we did.
I remember some stressful days in the studio. I remember one day, I can't remember what we were shooting, but again, 6 pages one day. And the photographer decided that we needed hair extensions on this particular model.
Right.
And the hair extensions took until 3 p.m.
Yes.
And I knew the jewellery, they were going to clamour the security guards and
Yes.
say, at 4 o'clock, we've got to go.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh my God, let's dump the hair
Yeah.
extensions.
Yeah. I know. I mean, there's just there's more to it. Everything's riding on getting that moment right.
And you never know what you're going to go back with.
No.
And actually, it's a leap of faith for the editor because you say, here's the idea. This is what we think we're going to do. But you
Yes.
never know.
No, it's true.
The
It's
day
true.
kind of evolves.
Yes. Yes.
And it is a leap of faith, really, in everyone collaborating.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But for all your success, Val, of being one of, if not the most recognised makeup artist in the industry, you didn't set out to do it, did you?
Well, I started out. I started out as a hairdresser, and was quite happy being a hairdresser. But I used to wear a lot of makeup, and people would often say to me, "Oh, you should do makeup," and I thought, working in the fashion business with all those divas, no. No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to put myself under that kind of pressure. But somehow or other, it just happened. But I think I was very fortunate to work with and still do work with incredible people. And I think you'll find that when you find your people, hopefully they're all really nice. I mean, the people I work with, like Sam McKnight, Nick Knight, Salva Sunsbow, and a whole host of other people, they're great at their job. And we're all in it together because the end goal is getting the result, getting that shot.
But you said it happened. How did it happen? You were in Australia?
I was in Australia.
And you were doing hair?
I was doing hair in Australia, and it was funny. I was on my way back from a funeral. It was the 80s, and so there was lots of funerals with the boys, and a friend of mine who was a makeup artist, he said, "Oh, he'd give me a lift back to the city." And he said, "You know what? I'm going to stop doing makeup. I want to be a photographer." And I was already interested in makeup. And I said, "Well, I'd like to have a go at makeup." And he said, "Well, let's test together. I'll do the pictures and you can do the makeup." And that's kind of how it started. And then when I came to England, I didn't know which way I was going to go because I was already very established at hair. So one day I would be doing hair on a job with, say, a lead makeup artist like, say, Lisa Butler. And then the next day I'd be doing makeup and Eugene Suleiman would be doing the hair. But just gradually the hair sort of fell away and the makeup took over. And I kind of grew up through the ranks with the likes of Eugene Suleiman and Katie England. And through Katie, I met Lee McQueen, and Nick Knight. I was already working a little bit with Nick Knight, and so it just sort of like took off.
And for Lee McQueen, you did some incredible, iconic looks.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Because what I loved about Lee was he was a boundary breaker, and he wanted to take you to the nth degree. I mean, there have been times when I was working with him when, the makeup was set, the hair was set, styling, everything, because we developed it like a month before. And then the show call time would be like 7 o'clock in the morning. And at 1 o'clock in the morning of the actual show day, I'd get a phone call. "You need to come to the studio now because we want to look at the makeup." So that means I've got to do the makeup again at 1 o'clock in the morning. We want to look at it under the lights to see if we like it. And there was one particular time, this was a Givenchy show in Paris, and Lee was like, "No, I don't like it. I don't like it. You need to change it." So, which is fine, but I then had to, on the morning of the show, sort of show my sort of like 30 makeup artists that, no, we're not doing the blue kind of like Blade Runner eye, we're going somewhere else, and this is what it is, so, but I quite like that, taking it to the wire,
Because I suppose for him, it was all about telling a story.
Absolutely.
So it's not just a normal makeup situation. You are creating a sort of artistic artwork.
Yes, it's all about the story that he's telling, and you find that with every great artist, designer, photographer. Take someone like, say, Tim Walker. It's a story from start to finish, and I love that. And it's like, when I work with Kate Moss, she'll be sort of like, so who am I? Who am I today? How am I supposed to be? What are my emotions? Is it a liner? Is it just a lip? And I like that. I love creating characters.
And in creating characters, you've often used crystals, haven't you? You've
Yes.
put things on people's faces.
Yes.
And so then the jewellery comes into it.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think, we have to thank programs like Euphoria for that, but long before that, I can remember the very first fashion rocks that ever happened.
I remember that, at the Albert Hall.
At the Albert Hall, and everybody and anybody was there. I think I had like 160 models, 78 makeup artists, and we were all in these little tiny rooms, sort of like, caverns in the basement. And Eugene Suleiman's doing the hair, and it's hell. It's hell because, you've got to be in this room and that room and that room and that room and make sure everybody's, doing what they're supposed to be doing. And halfway through, Lee McQueen walks in with Bjork. And he's like, all right, Val. And I'm like, oh, hi, Lee. And he's like, yeah, I've got Bjork here. I want you to cover her face in crystals, like a skull crystal. I've got Swarovski crystals here. And I'm thinking, it's an hour before the show. And he's like, yeah, cover her in the crystals. And I was like, okay. And so we did it, and that particular look that Bjork wore.
How did you keep them on?
Eyelash glue. Just eyelash glue. And
there's a tip for people at home.
Yes, eyelash glue. And many years later, I had to recreate that mask that I did on Bjork because it was going to be exhibited at the Momo Museum in New York. Yeah.
Wow. What's the biggest project that you've done, do you think? Would it be something like Fashion Rocks?
That was a pretty big one.
Also the egos, because they were matching up designers with musicians. So you have Brian Ferry and Tom Ford.
Yes.
And so I think the ego situation there must have been fancy.
Yes. I mean, I think that was the first time I saw Beyonce live, Yes, it was just absolutely... It was a military operation. I had 18 teams because there was like 18 sections. I had 18 teams and there were like 6 makeup artists in each team. And I sort of said, right, okay, you're head of this team. This is your look. You have to make sure that the other 5 artists do that for that section. And that's how we did it. But it was great. I loved it. But then, later on, I mean, that set me in good stead for, working at the Cannes Film Festival and also working with L'Oréal Paris, where they do this massive show in September, October with lots of lead actresses and models. And, it's the same thing again. It's a lot of different people coming together, and you've got publicists and I need to look like this and they want you to look like that, and it's
so you have to take your crystals on those days.
Oh yes, weave a magic wand, but it all works in the end, so that's good.
And so with Lee coming in to say this is what I want, I imagine in most situations you are coming up with the ideas.
Well, I think for someone, with any designer, it's collaborative. It can't just be, this is the makeup idea. The makeup has to go with the hair, has to go with, the styling, whatever the vision is, whoever the woman is, or the character for that moment.
And now you have your own, you're part of the judging team on Glow Up on BBC?
BBC 3 on iPlayer, yeah.
Yeah. And on that, you have this sort of, you've got this sort of little phrase that's become nationwide.
I know.
Ding dong.
I know. I never thought that would happen. And all that particular phrase, that harks back to me working backstage at a show, and I always want to get the best out of my makeup artists. So I was never that sort of makeup artist that would go like, no, can you do that again? Like, no, I don't like it. If I didn't like it, I'd be like, it's nice, but you need to bring the magic. So to help my team bring the magic, you know, if I saw one of my artists doing a great makeup, I'd be like, ding dong, Dolly Chops, that's amazing. Now everybody else's has got to be better than Jane's. And so that's where it started. So people that know me in the business know that I've always said that. So, you know, we're doing the show.
So you're trying to find Britain's next big makeup artist star.
Yes. And although it's a TV program, to me, I just sort, because I have no TV training, no sort of like, you know, media training or anything like that. So I'm approaching it like I'm backstage at the shows and I'm talking to fashion, beauty experts and things like that. And, you know, when the artists, the MUA sort of like bring up their makeup, I behaved exactly the way I do backstage. I'd be like, ding dong, that's amazing. And then all of a sudden, it's become this catchphrase, which, you know, it's a little bit cringy, but, you know, it's just sort of stuck. It just stuck.
Do people come up to you in the street and say ding dong?
Yes, they do. And I was on a bus with Charlotte Tilbury, and we were sort of going down the mall for, you know, the what was it?
Oh, was it the Jubilee?
It was the Jubilee, the Queen's Jubilee. And we're going down and we're sort of like, look, it's open to topped. We're looking out. And I sort of, I see this little 8-year-old girl and she's crying and she's like, Daddy, Daddy, it's the ding dong lady. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Ding dong lady.
Because that's what's so nice. Well, another funny thing happened the other day, but what was I going to say? What's so great about Glow Up is that, you know, so many people get invested in it, from like, you know, 8-year-old children to sort of like my boyfriend's best friend who is kind of like in his 60s and is a detective, and he sort of said, I can't go past a poster now without going like, are those eyebrows symmetrical? You know, it's very funny. And but the other day I was in Westfields. And I went into this shop. I was shooting something with the lovely Nadine Baggett. And I went into this clothes shop afterwards. And this young lady came up to me and said, I recognise you. And I was like, do you? And she was like, yeah. She said, you know, you kind of look like the lady who does the fashion on Lady Gaga. And I said, really? She's like, yeah. And I sort of said, yeah, that's me. And she's like, don't be so silly. I only said you look like her. I thought that was hilarious. Like, okay, it's not me.
That's so funny.
Yeah. I started working with Nick Knight with Lady Gaga. Mm-hmm. And at the time I started working with her, she used to wear like kind of like 4 sets of eyelashes. She had these sort of like very strong sort of like eyebrows. And we started working together and I was doing her makeup, and one day her fashion director at the time, Nicola Formichetti, he met me in Milan because we were doing the shows, me and Sam, and we were doing something for Lady Gaga, and he said, look, we need to create something new. How can we change the way Gaga looks? And I said, well, you know, I think I'd like to bleach her eyebrows. I'd like to lose all the fake eyelashes, you know, get her really sort of like raw and punk and very sort of like pure but music based. So I said, and why don't we give her prosthetics? And everybody was going like, what do you mean prosthetics? I said, well, let's accentuate her cheeks, like pull them out so that she looks a bit more alien like. That was that. Nicola took a photograph with his phone. And what I did was I made 2 little paper aeroplanes and stuck them to Lady Gaga's face and said, look, it would look something like that. It was very raw. He took a picture and went away. 3 months later, we are on the shoot for the Born This Way album cover. And in walks a prosthetics technician and says, Miss Garland, here are the prosthetics that you have designed for Lady Gaga. And I was like, I never thought that was going to happen, you know. So then I started working with her, and one of my favourite looks, which I did with Gaga, was for a music video. It's called Alejandro, and I did it with Stephen Klein, and it was that moment where, for me, it felt like music and fashion and beauty really came together. It felt like a really iconic moment because her makeup was very pure. It was all about the skin. Yes, she had very pale blonde eyebrows and a matte red lip. And it just felt like this is a moment. Yeah, so I was very proud of that video.
And to create something for her in particular, who changes her look and style all the time.
Yes, I mean, it sort of, what it did was it changed makeup artists and to a certain degree fashion sort of people into like there's more to makeup than just makeup, you know, like prosthetics hadn't really been used in like fashion before or beauty, and then after that, you know, you were sort of like seeing like prosthetics coming through on like say a Burberry catwalk. You know, what we were doing was like saying makeup is bigger, it's wider, it's huger. You know, it can help. It can change the way you look. You know, it can create a character. Like when you see like programs like Euphoria, which is like old now, but you know, and that's what's great about Glow Up. Glow Up has opened the world's eyes to it's more than just a bit of lippy, you know, it's more than makeup. You can take it seriously now. It is a profession, you know. You can go into film, you can go into special effects. There are so many different eras and genres of makeup that can be your career, and it's very exciting.
Yeah, so it must be quite intimidating when you do people like that, is it? Do you get intimidated ever?
Only if they're not nice, you know.
Well, you must meet your fair share of that.
Well, the most important, if somebody's being a little bit kind of like holding back, that's my job to find them. I've got to find the connections so that they feel good, so that I was saying this the other day to FK Twigs. I was like, you know, like for me, especially when I do someone for the first time, they're always a little bit nervous because they haven't worked with me before, you know. Maybe they think I'm going to do something outlandish or whatever. You know, I have to get that person to give me their face. And that's what's so great about Kate Moss is, you know, when I'm working with her on like an editorial, she will come in, and because it's an editorial and we're creating something, we did something a while back, and she just sat there and she gave me her face. She was still, because she knew that if she's still, I can create, Sam can create, and it's going to look much better.
Well, she's pretty practiced at it, isn't
Well, she
she?
certainly is,
And
yeah.
also as a model, it kind of is your job.
Yeah.
I suppose it is an actress's role as well, too.
Yes. But as a model, you probably are more inclined to go with the flow, whereas when you're a personality,
You want to
I'm
look
not.
your best.
You want to look like yourself, and no, I
Yeah.
don't look good in that. I
Yeah.
need to and no, I'm. It was funny. I was working with many years ago. I was working with Keira Knightley, and we were doing something for W Magazine with Stephen Klein. So she sat in my chair, and you know, Stephen Klein can be quite outrageous, very sort of progressive. And she said, "Val, you can do whatever you like to me, but you are not bleaching my eyebrows." And I was like, "Okay, I get it. Yeah."
So you set to work.
I set to work. It was fine.
Yeah. And so from enhancing women and using colour to do that, you've now started a new collaboration with Vicki Sarge,
Yes.
who is a legendary costume designer who used to do all the shows in New York, didn't she? And
Absolutely,
London. If
yeah.
anybody needed costume jewellery, they went to Vicki. And now she's in Kensington,
Yes.
Church Street in London, still going, and asked you to design a new collection.
Yes, yes. Well, the thing for me is that I first came across Vicki through working with Lee McQueen, and so the jewellery was always spectacular, and I thought, well, that's very interesting because when you think about the sort of 80s, 90s, yeah, 80s and 90s, high-end jewellery was pretty boring. You had to look to vintage pieces, but everything was quite mainstream. And what I loved about Vicki was she was going out on an edge, and she also had humour in her work. I then started noticing Vicki's jewellery more when I worked with Lucinda Chambers, who has an incredible eye for jewellery.
This is Lucinda Chambers of British Vogue, who I worked with for many years.
I mean, her jewellery, her eyes for jewellery, her mind for jewellery is formidable. The thing about sort of like Lucinda, Vivienne Westwood, myself, we're all sort of quite similar in that we're like magpies, and that's what I like about Vicki Sarge as well. We're like magpies. It's like you go into the wardrobe, and whatever sticks, that's what you're going to wear today. But I remember going in for a fitting at Vivienne Westwood's, and I had bought these Greek slippers, like granny slippers in Greece, and I had them, and I would wear them from time to time. And I quite like a leg warmer, and I quite like a little arm warmer that goes over, your thumb. And I walked into this fitting, and I was like, Vivienne is wearing my slippers. She's also wearing this arm leg warmer thing, and I was like, yes, I'm okay, and but yeah, and Lucinda and I would often, we liked the same designers, or we might buy the same things. So that's, again, I was ignited by Vicki Sarge's jewellery. And then when it came to doing the show Glow Up, I love jewellery. Back in the 80s when I was a hairdresser, I would wear like a jumble sale. It would be kind of like loads of vintage keys that I just sort of like.
Were you a bit punk?
Oh yes, and new romantic, and I'd sort of like put all these keys over my Westwood outfit, or there'd be kind of like 6 watches going up my arm. So when it came to doing the show, my stylist at that time, Carl Pluka, I said, look, I love jewellery. I love jewellery. I like a big chunky necklace. I don't like looking at my hands, so I quite like a big ring so that it takes away. I've got arthritis, so my hands are quite swollen. So anything big and chunky works on me.
Can you do people's faces wearing big rings?
Yes. No.
No, you take them off when you...
No, and for me, it's not hygienic. It has to be hygienic. And you don't want somebody coming at you with loads of armour and, the metal touching your face if you're doing a lovely massage. No. So... in the beginning, Carl got me fabulous jewellery, very high-end, expensive jewellery, but it was tiny and you couldn't sort of see it on the show. And I was like, that doesn't work. And so he took me into Vicki Sarge's, and I was like, oh, I really like that because, there's a bit of a baby's arm there, and when there's a feather, oh look, and there's a little coloured ball. And I thought, well, that appeals to the magpie in me and the sort of like eccentric kitchen sink. So Vicki Sarge became the jewellery designer that I knew I was going to wear on the show all the way through.
And you have.
And I have, yes.
So then she went one stage further and said, how about you design something?
Yes.
And you have. And it launches this week.
It launches, yes, this week, tomorrow night, yeah.
Which is so exciting.
Yeah, no, I'm very
And are you
excited.
really pleased with?
I'm really pleased because it's what's the word? It's like it's bling.
And what was the inspiration?
Well, the inspiration, we wanted to take elements of myself, of what I like, my past, what's important to me. There are.
So this necklace, for
yes,
instance, this great.
This necklace
Is that you?
Well, I'd say
There's
that's
some
one of
big
no.
lips, big red lips.
That's if you know me, you know the story behind the big red lips. It's like this is what I call one of my dolls. Because when I first started out in makeup in Sydney, Australia, my salon, my hairdressing salon, was right next door to the biggest drag queen establishment in Sydney, which was called the Albury Hotel. And so I would go and look at how all the drag queens and trans people were sort of like doing their makeup, and sometimes they'd do my makeup. And it was always very big. And so, yeah, so this is like, celebrating the dolls.
You've
And
also got some little scissors here. Is
well,
that the
that's the hairdresser.
hairdressing?
That's the hairdresser. We've got the magnifying glass, and that first started with
Uh-huh.
Nick Knight because he used to work with a 10:8 Polaroid film, which is you see absolutely everything on the skin. So you cannot, you want to see skin, you don't want to see texture, you don't want to see like a powdery finish. And with Polaroid, 10:8 Polaroid, you get one chance. It's like, click, that's the shot. If that doesn't work, you've got to take another one. And they're very expensive. So I decided that to make my work more precise, and this is before sort of like digital and retouching, I would get a magnifying glass so that I could make that liner so precise, and that mascara so smooth without a bobble, that lip line, the edge so sharp. So that's how the magnifying glass came into play. There's also like, the paintbrush, which is there.
Uh-huh.
So that's
Cute.
sweet. And then I think we've got a spider. I love spiders.
You've got a spider. You've got a I Love Valium.
We've got now. This goes back to Australia, and it's all about. Often when I was on a shoot, especially if it's like a big shoot and there's lots of models, I just get it done. People say that I'm calm, and in Australia they sort of nicknamed me Valium because I was always calm and got the job done. So that's that. What else have we got here?
Validated. That's
Well,
your
validated.
memoir, isn't it?
Well,
Called
it's
Validated.
yes. I brought a book out, and it's called Validated, and it's yeah. It for me. This all goes back to working backstage at the shows, and in the early days. Teams, makeup artists, hairdressers backstage, they'd cover up all their work or all their things so that nobody could see what you're using. This is my secret. This is my magic. And this was the beginning of like Twitter, Facebook, the beginning of Instagram, that sort of thing. And I thought, you know what? There's enough work for all of us. If I find a product that I think is really good, I'm going to validate it. And I never thought validate. I just thought, I'll validate it. Like, this is a great product. And what started happening was beauty editors would go like, we need to look at that product. Val Garland's validated it, And so that just became a thing. And so then when I came to doing like a book of my work, I thought, well, what am I going to call it? I'm going to call it Validated. And that's it.
So this is your life. What's the rubber duck?
No idea at all. I think that's Vicki. That's the boys. That's the boys.
And what's that?
What is that?
Is that a little musical note, or there is something musical here, isn't there?
There is something musical
rock
there.
and rolly.
I don't know what that is.
New romantic.
Yes, and little dolls. I love toys. I love dolls.
Mm-hmm.
I love the dolls. Makeup, an eye pencil, the Catholic
really
vow. I love a cross. Yeah, it's like magpie bling.
Magpie bling, and then you've got lots of big rings, big brooches.
Yes. again, I mean, yes.
And this, if anyone's seen the Cartier exhibition, there's the Maharaja Patiala's huge
Yes.
diamond bib necklace. That's a bit like that.
And I just love that. I think if you're wearing an all black dress or even like a sort of like a black suit and you've got that on, that's saying, yes, I've arrived.
It's Maharaja bling.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
And this...
that's a simple thing. That's like validated.
Validated.
Just a little simple. Yeah. Oh, no. You know what that is? That's the exclamation mark.
Oh, I see. At the end of validated.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then crystal explanation
This
mark.
is the cross. But this is the cross as a whistle because I always used to wear a whistle backstage. So we.
And why did you wear a whistle backstage?
To draw attention.
So instead of ding dong, it was listen up, folks.
Possibly, yeah. Or like I'd walk in the morning and I'd whistle and say morning, and people would like, oh gosh, she's here. We better show up, you know.
And so this does actually whistle.
Well, yes, that's yours.
Oh, hold on a minute.
There you go.
That's
it. Call the Uber. Yes.
Jewellery with a function.
Yes, jewellery with a function. But you know, I mean, I just like lots of diamonds.
This is your magpie thing you're talking about.
Yes, you know, I mean, I was around people like Judy Blame, and you know, I loved the way he sort of like put lots of different elements together and just made things individual. And that's what I like, and that's what I like about, you know, Vicky's or my collaboration with, you know, Vicki and the boys. It's just it feels individual, and that sings to me.
And I think what's interesting about your interests, the makeup, the jewellery, it's the way people can have their own identity now.
Yes.
And it really is a form of self-expression, both, because everything we wear is the same.
Yes. So, you know, I mean, in like this particular season, I was like, right, I want to wear a lot of brooches. You know, we haven't really been wearing brooches since the 50s. So let's get some brooches going, you know. And, you know, there were times like during the show where I might be wearing like 4 or 5 different brooches on a very plain suit. And I just love jewellery.
And you get inspired by it. I mean, there are definitive trends in makeup, aren't there?
Yes.
And how often do they change? Are they seasonal?
All the time.
Yeah,
No.
or all the time.
They used to be seasonal, but I think now, you know, it's whatever's happening on TikTok. You know, sadly but true. And
not Vogue anymore. It's TikTok.
You know, there is no. To be honest, there's no such. I don't think trends exist anymore. There are kind of like moments where things have gone viral. You know, like back in the day, the trend would be like, okay, so we're all wearing ballet slippers and we're going to be wearing ballet slippers, you know, for the next 2 seasons. It's not like that anymore. It's much more instant. With social media, it's bish, bash, bosh. You know, liners in, liners out, mascaras in, mascaras out, you know. But also, it's a great time to be in fashion and beauty because you can be who you are. It's very it's very inclusive and individualistic. So, you know, if you want to wear maximalism, great. If you want to be Jill Sander minimalist, that's okay too. You know.
So what is the colour of the moment?
Well, the colour of the moment, according to Pantene, is coffee mocha, I think it's called, which is sort of like a pinky, beigey sort of fawn. But am I going to hold to that? No. You know, wear what you want. I mean, I arrived today in a bright pink jacket.
Yeah, there is a lot of brown around, isn't there?
Yeah, but you know, but things go in cycles, and like in the sort of like 1980, it was all brown and cream, molten brown, you know, and everything was, you know, mocha. What will be next? maybe will be power dressing.
Do you think so?
Well, I certainly think there'll be a lot of bright colours.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you think of...
We've got to cheer ourselves up as well.
We've got, I mean, with the way the world is, we do have to cheer ourselves up.
The same way they used to measure the economy by the length of women's skirts.
Yes.
Now, the amount of makeup and colour we need is going to be in direct correlation to the miserableness that we read every day.
But also now, I think the latest, if you want to call it a trend, I'll say moment, is for a realism in makeup. That sort of like influencer, sort of like loads and loads of loads, like a big eyebrow, all of that sort of thing. That feels like it's going away. It's more about skin work working with makeup so that you are the best version of you. I think, I mean, you just look at, you know, Hailey Bieber, you know, like her sort of like whole aesthetic, which was like the best version of me. And I think that's what's really trending now.
Also, it's in all the Netflix shows, isn't it? All these sort of women in Montecito looking just fabulous, sun-kissed.
Glorious,
but not hugely made up.
No. It's all,
so it's real, but better.
It's hyper realness, yeah. The very best of you, yeah.
And how seasonal will the jewellery be? Will you do one a year for them or see how it goes?
Well, I've only been asked by the boys to do this collection. Let's see where we go from there.
Well, I think everyone's going to be wearing it. It's fantastic. And great timing, because as Christmas season approaches, people are going to want to wear that, aren't they?
Fantastic. I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other interesting thing I was thinking about your job is that actually as AI approaches, being a makeup artist is one thing that robots are not going to be able to do?
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I think, well, I mean, if a robot can, you know, make a car, if a robot can do an operation,
it can be quite agile.
Yes. Why can't a robot?
Precise.
Why can't a robot do a face?
Well, that's another career out the window for us.
Exactly. Yeah.
I was thinking, what a great career for people for the future.
No. But who knows? I hope that doesn't happen. Yeah. But who knows?
And one hot tip for us that we should to improve our daily makeup. Would you have one tip for us?
Well, now that it's this time of the year, SPF.
Okay.
And always wear your SPF, always, even on a dull, wet, rainy day. But for me, my best tip is smile. And I learnt that from Helen Mirren. I said to Helen, why do you shine on the red carpet? What is it? And she's like, darling, I always smile.
Very good. Val, thank you so much for sharing more than your jewellery, your makeup, your tips, your life. And so from now on, that's it. I will announce the podcast is over. With my Val Garland whistle. And thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. And that's a definite ding dong.
Thank you for listening. For this and other episodes of If Jewels Could Talk, please go to our website, carolwoolton.com. Do share it any way you can, and we love to have a rating and a comment, so thank you. We're actually taking a little summer break now. That was our finale. But you can get hold of us on the website or on Instagram at Carol Woolton. Do suggest any episodes that you'd like to hear. And if you'd like to partner or collaborate with us. And we'll be back soon. We'll keep you posted. We've got a ton of fantastic episodes to share with you. In the meantime, we have nearly 100 on the back catalogue, so catch up with those. Send us any questions. And we really look forward to seeing you again soon. And thank you for listening. Bye-bye. If Jewels Could Talk with Carol Woolton is produced by Natasha Cowan. Music and editing by Tim Thornton. Graphics by Scott Bentley. Illustration by Jordi Labanda.